What can you do on the side that's going to bring you joy that you can build? And maybe it will enable you to leave the day job at some point, but that isn't even the point of it. The point is to do something creative or fun or exciting on the side and let that joy leak into the part of your life that you don't love so much.
Are you ready to reclaim your life from exhaustion and expand the possibilities of what life can be? If so, I'm your guide, Evelyn.Energy, work-life geek and engineer-turned-resiliency coach on a mission to redefine how we work, live, and utilize our energy. Each episode, I dig deep with my guests as they share their story, spark, and strategies for developing our own unique work-life blend. This is Engineering Serenity. Episode 18, Keys to Balance with Debra Eckerling.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to talk to you.
Too. And before we dig into the DEB method and goals and your stories and strategies, I want the audience to get to know you a bit better. So I'm going to start with a few basic questions.
Okay.
So, what is your full name and pronouns?
My full name is Debra Lynn Eckerling. No, but most people call me Deb, and she, her.
What is your age-ish?
I'm a Generation Xer.
Nice. What industry do you work in?
Motivating. I don't know if that's an industry, but I am all about helping people figure out what they want and how to get it. So some people will say communications because I help people with book proposals. Some people say leadership, business development, but really motivation.
If it's not an industry, it really should be.
I know, right?
It's a category in the bookstore. Why wouldn't it be an industry?
I am claiming motivation as being my industry, but if we wanted to be more specific, my background is communications and project management, which really fits in really well with goal setting, productivity, community, even podcasting, which is the other thing I love to do. I just like talking. I think my industry is now talking.
I love it all. How many hours do you typically work per week?
I should know the answer to this, and I really don't. Enough that I get everything that needs to get done, but not so much that I am like a pool of goo at the end of the week because all I did is work. I'm really good at balance.
Oh, you're going to love it. My next question is, on a scale of 1 to 5, how would you describe your current work-life blend?
So 5 is the best, right?
Yeah, 5 is good.
I'm going to go with that one.
1 is pile of goo.
Yeah, let's go with 5. And just like anybody, you have deadlines, so work is a little bit more priority than life. But I think especially since I am like the definition of the portfolio career because I am an author, I am a workshop leader, I am a speaker, I am a podcaster, I'm also freelance writer as well, and I do project work with clients. So I do and it all works very well unless I try and be all 5 me's on the same day, and then it gets a little nutty. But I believe when you love what you do, it really I say this on my show all the time. When you love what you do, it shows. When you don't love what you do, it really shows. So why not love what you do and
Yeah.
put your all into everything?
I have a question about how that all blends in with your project management background, which I find quite interesting, especially with coming from an audience of analytical thinkers and people who love structure, like how you have all those different balls in the air. Do you have some sort of structure in place, or do you just go with it with all those different categories and areas in your business that you work in, yet you're able to keep this beautiful blend?
The secret is the calendar. And I always do what I tell my clients to do because when I feel I know better than myself, it's a problem. But everything pretty much is scheduled. And I very rarely am I all of the me's on the same day, but I am a freelance writer and I have a Friday deadline for one of the places that I write for. Others are a little bit more fluid, but I'm a huge fan of, I call it Zoom Free Friday, but really it floats. But at least 1 or 2 days a week, I have a meeting free day.
Yeah.
And if I have to do a meeting, I will do it off camera. And that allows me to focus on the specific things that I need to do that are writing wise. So it's really, you look at your week, you make that monster to-do list, you categorize it out, and then you set appointments for what needs to get done. And I'm on a book deadline right now, so it's just adding one more huge ball in the air. But I really do love all the different aspects that make me, and that makes it a lot easier to go with the flow and embrace. And I won't even call it chaos. It's embracing the different types of projects because I've always been that type of person. I always like to work on different things because it gives your entire brain lots of fun things. I'll even give you an example. I met with a book client this morning, and he's writing his book, and we're working on his book proposal. And whereas when you're looking to publish, whether you're looking to publish independently or traditionally, you need a book proposal because it gives you a roadmap. So whether you're going to do all the steps yourself or you're going to send it out in the world. And whereas you include a writing sample within your book proposal, you don't necessarily write the whole book. But I told him, if you're compelled to work on your book in tandem with the book proposal, knowing that it could change, you never know. But there are two really important elements working towards the same goal in tandem, but they use different parts of your brain,
Yeah.
different skill sets, and different levels of enthusiasm. So it's like writing and research. They're both important for a lot of different kinds of projects. Set aside, don't try and do them both together. Set aside, this is for this kind of project, this is for that kind of project. And that way, it keeps everything more focused and it's easier for you to move forward.
Yeah, exactly. And that gives you a feel of like, how are you honoring all those different aspects of you and not beating yourself up, but also allowing you to only show up in one version of yourself, as you said.
Y- Yeah, exactly. And another really good example is, so I record Goal Chat on Mondays at 4 p.m. Pacific. I bring in 3 guests. You've been a guest before. You will be a guest again whenever you feel like being sleep deprived and staying up super late to be part of my panel. Typically, I do not schedule other appointments for Mondays. I use that as my catch-up day, my email day, my whatever parts of projects don't involve interacting with other people, and that way my energy is up and ready to do my show at 4.
Yeah.
Other day for my other show, Taste Buds with Deb, which is my 20-minute-ish foodie podcast, every other week I will record 2 or 3 interviews so I can batch them a little. It's not overwhelming. It's not like I'm going to do 8 in a day. I know there are people who do that. But for me, it's manageable to do 2 to 3 recordings that I'm set for a couple of weeks. And it just, I think the key to balance is logic. What
Interesting.
makes sense to work together and what does not?
The key to balance is logic. Okay, I'm gonna put a pin in that one. I'm gonna finish the top level questions and then we're gonna dive in more. Okay.
Oh my goodness, are we still at the top level questions?
Oh yeah, it's okay. We're almost done. Where are you located in the world?
I'm Los Angeles, California, United States.
What culture were you raised in?
Yes, I was raised in the Midwest, born and raised in the Midwest, moved to Los Angeles, and I've been here ever since.
Nice. Do you have any hobbies?
I love to cook, but is it a hobby if it's also one of my podcasts? Maybe.
I don't know. Maybe.
I am a reformed non-cook. I used to think it took way too much time and energy to cook. It was much easier to dial for dinner. And then I got an Instant Pot. Actually, I got my mom an Instant Pot for Mother's Day. And we both looked at it and it's a like a pressure cooker plus, right? And she said, is cooking in it part of my present? Okay. And I went and I did some Googling and I watched some videos and we both learned. But what I learned is you could put in ingredients and then go do things And then you're rewarded with not only accomplishing something, but you have food, a meal. And that was really the gateway. And I love saying I'm a reformed non-cook who's also now a food writer and food podcaster. So it's again to the perspective. I love nothing more than disconnecting and preparing food because it really gives you that break from all the electronics, from all the noise. It's you and your future food. And then again, while it is cooking, there's so many different things you can get done, whether you're using the air fryer and it's like a 4-minute flip, 4 more minutes, or you're making soup in the Instant Pot, which even when you set it for 20 minutes, there's pressure. It comes to pressure for about 20, and then when it's soup, it's natural release. So you're looking at me like, really, Deb? Never thought about it that way. But the different things that you make using the different appliances, there's always something that can get done while it is turning into the meal that you are so excited to eat. And that way, it's the best of both worlds.
So are you disconnecting when you're cooking? Because I heard a mix that you disconnect from everything while you cook in the meal moving forward, but then you're also mixing in activities between your 20-minute pressure.
And so the answer is yes. So, let's take soup because soup is really the best example. So while I'm cutting the vegetables and putting it all together, I am not my phone is usually charging because that's a good break for it while I'm doing this. And I am very much into putting all the ingredients together. So for whatever that timing is, I am not on my phone, which is huge. Then once it's cooking, yes, I will take whatever time that is and get something done, whether it's sending emails or working on articles, whatever I can fit in that amount of time, which again, it will differ depending on what I am preparing. And then I've accomplished something, and then I get a reward.
Yeah.
Accomplishing your goals is really your own reward, but a treat here and there never hurt anybody.
Okay, so you mentioned goals, and I know goals are your jam.
Are my jam. More food.
So goals are one of those things where I feel like in many ways it's a bit of a buzzword. Everybody has goals and then they don't execute them. Some people there's a conversation that's starting to say that don't have goals, have intentions, have other things. Tell me your stance on all of this as a goal lady.
I do goals differently than a lot of people.
Okay.
And I believe it starts with creating that foundation. And I may have rebranded myself as the DEB Method in 2018 prior to writing your goal guide, which came out in 2020. But I have been leading goal groups and goal sessions for years. And for me, it has always been about to get what you want, you need to know what that is.
Yeah.
And if something isn't working right in your life, that's your cue to take a step back and think about the life you want so you can make a plan to get there. It starts with intent.
Yeah.
DEB Method. D stands for determine your mission. Can't get what you want unless you know what that is. And it starts with that visualization. Think about where you are now, where you are going, but also think about your mission statement. Who are you? What makes you unique? And then how do you help? And then we shorten that into a motto, and that motto is your decision tree. It's your North Star, it's your compass. So everything that you're doing in working towards that ideal life is in alignment with your motto. So my mission statement is something to the effect of use my background, skills, book, workshops to help people figure out what they want and how to get it so they can live better, more fulfilled lives, and in turn help others. Very long, very clunky. My motto is goal setting simplified. So everything that I do is with that in mind because changing your life is challenging enough. The instructions need to be easy.
Yeah.
So I made the instructions really easy. So that's
So that
the T.
instructions is your motto.
My motto is goal setting simplified.
Right.
So that is everything I create. My writing is not 20, 50, $100 words. It is I talk like I write. It's designed to be very motivational. And again, what can be easier than, okay, think about the life you want. What does that look like?
Yeah.
Great. Write your current bio. Fantastic. Write your future bio in the present tense because that gives it power. Now think about what is your mission and create a motto from that. And is there anything simpler than that for creating the foundation for your goals?
It's beautiful. You mentioned that you could use your motto as a decision tree. I find that
Yes.
as a woman who thinks in structures, I was like, okay, tell me more.
I love this example. Years ago, a friend of mine was doing a women in business panel. I hadn't worked in an office in probably 10, 15 years at that point, maybe more like 10. I can't remember. Anyway, the point is, Deb, will you be on this panel about women in business? I love to talk. Okay. I regretted it the minute I said yes because I'm like, okay, I could talk about it, but is it the best use of my time? I already committed. Okay, I will do it. This is a wonderful example of the universe looking out for you. The morning of the event, it was canceled because the venue fell through. Then she reschedules for January. And I said, January is goal season. I start goal season in December, but I could not commit to a January event that was not in alignment with who I am and what I do.
Uh-huh.
And I said, I can't. Thank you. Good luck. And something came up that day that was in alignment that I was able to say yes to because I turned down something that wasn't. So, on your goal journey, if you've got that motto, that decision tree, my TEDx is the magic of your motto. If you look at the opportunities and say, is that in alignment with my motto? If yes, then yes. If no, then you ask yourself, is there another benefit for me?
Yeah.
If yes, then yes. If no, then you have to really think if this is right for you. And that's how it works.
And it, as you said, it's simplifying that decision process.
Yes,
Beautiful.
exactly. Thank you.
Now I want to know about the rest of the. Now I want to share the rest of the DEB method. We did D.
So E is explore your options. So whereas D is determine your mission to get what you want, you need to know what that is. E, explore your options. That's the research phase. It's I want this life, but what are the different things I need to do to get there? So is it I'm a thought leader in this? Great. Do I write a book? Do I do a podcast? Do I do webinars? Do I do a course? What are the different things out there? Am I writing articles? And then I have this tool I love. I call it directed journaling. And it's my take on journaling, where you're setting 3, 4, 5, 15-minute sessions with yourself, and you are brain dumping the answer to a very specific question or series of questions. I am a thought leader in making sure people engineer serenity. What does that mean? What do I need to create? What are some things I can do to get my message out there and on? And the trick is you want to do this 3, 4, 5 times. Do not read what you've written until you've completed the exercise. Then you can go back and find your common themes because there may be something you thought really excited you, but you mentioned it twice. But there was this other thing that you mentioned like 10 times that you're like, oh, I need to pay attention to that. And someone was asking me, my client was asking me about my other books. So I self-published my first 2 books, Purple Pencil Adventures and Write on Blogging, 51 Tips to Create, Write, and Promote Your Blog. And even in your goal guide, I use a ton of food examples. And this was before I started doing food writing and food podcasting. So I just realizing as we're talking about it, it is something that I had been, even though I didn't really love to cook till about 7 years ago, it's been something I've always loved to eat. It's been something top of mind. The things that you write about, that you're enthusiastic about, you're going to give that energy to.
Yeah.
You need to honor that and see where it takes you. So you do this directed journaling exercise and you pick maybe 3 options. Do a little bit of research, see who you know who does what you want to be doing or what resources they have, or you can even Google and watch YouTube videos of people doing what you want to create so you can make an informed decision. And the other part of it, and I am a huge fan of LinkedIn, that's the first when I meet new people, whether it is in virtual events or remember in-person things, which right now we get both. Used to be you would meet people in person and connect online. Now for a while it was you connect online and then meet in person. And now we're living in such a hybrid
Yeah.
land. So whether somebody introduces me to a potential guest for one of my shows or someone I interview for an article or someone I meet in an event, I'll always connect on LinkedIn because the more you can't reach your goals on your own, you need your people. So the more people in your tribe, we met through our friend Jillian Voris, who I met years and years ago when I was writing for Social Media Examiner and doing special projects for Social Media Marketing World. And we became friends. And now she's on the other part of the country by you.
Yeah, and I
And
met her at an in-person event, and we just clicked, and then we connected on LinkedIn, and then a post led me back to you. So how those connections work, you can't achieve your goals alone. I think that's a really important thing to remember when we get lost in our head and things like that. Reach out to the connections, look at back what's resonating with you, and
yes. And so the more people you have in your tribe when you're doing this research, the more resources you have out there. So explore your options about looking at the different rabbit holes or rabbit trails or whichever metaphor we want and thinking, okay, this makes sense first. And notice I said makes sense first, not just do that, but prioritizing. Okay, I'm going to start by doing this and
I,
go from there.
I,
And brainstorm your path. Do you see where we're going? Is okay, you made a decision, write down everything your long term goals, short term goals, personal, professional, benchmarks, tasks, everything you think you need to get to that ideal life, and then divide and conquer. So you put all the personal goals together, the professional goals together, and then put the different benchmarks and tasks. You want to batch them together. So I think creating a website is great because it's for if you're building a business or thought leadership or what have you, you need a base of operations, an
yeah.
online home beyond and including social media, right? So what does that mean? Short-term goal, create the online presence. One benchmark is the technical specs, getting the hosting, figuring out the URL, the templates, what you want it to look like. Then a little bit more of like the structure of it. What are you going to post? Is it a podcast? Are you going to be writing blog posts? What are the different pages that you need to set up? And then the third would be the content. Okay, am I doing interviews? Am I just sharing news? Am I doing product features? Depending on your business, it's going to be different. But reaching all 3 of those benchmarks, the technical specs, the creative look, feel, and then the content, when you get to each of those benchmarks, which you have tasks that you need to complete to get it done, then you will have achieved that short-term goal of creating that website, online presence, what have you.
So how do you achieve the goals that you set? Really comes down to that brainstorming your path and setting those benchmarks in place so that you're consistently making those small achievements along the way.
Yes, you need to know the action items that are going to build you to reaching those benchmarks and what benchmarks you need to accomplish to get to those short-term goals. And the short-term goals are all in service of those long-term goals.
How did you end up in this space? Because it's so clearly articulated and it's so put together. It definitely is something that has been developed.
I This is years ago when I lived in Chicago suburbs. I was doing events for Barnes& and Noble, and whenever I needed to fill my calendar, I would hang out in the cafe because I wanted the bookstore to be for the community. And one day, one of my regulars said, "Will you start a writer support group?" And I said, "If you think people will come, let's give it a shot." And it was a hit. And not only that, it showed me the power of goal setting and accountability. So I would never ask anybody to do anything I wasn't prepared to do myself. So this group was, what have you accomplished? What are you working on? How can we support you? What
Mhm.
are your goals for next time? And I would at this so my degrees in journalism, I was working at a bookstore. It was a very deb job, but I still had writing goals. So I would my goal for each meeting was to write some sort of slice of life story. In that way, and then I was at a I mentioned before I'm a Generation Xer. I was at a Generation Expo, and there was a sales rep for a magazine, and he's like, "Do you wanna subscribe?" I said, "Are you looking for writers?" And I had clips because I had been making these writing goals, and they even published one of my, slice of life, one of my samples ended up going in the magazine. So that I was prepared. I had that material because I had been and some days I might have written the story the morning of the meeting or
Yeah.
an hour before during my dinner break before we met up. But having the deadlines and that kind of community is so beneficial because you've got the first of all, every when you've got a community of people where you're all uplifting each other, there's nothing more powerful. And on the flip side, there's the if they can do it, I can do it too. So it's really an environment, a community of achievement. So fast forward, moved to LA, restarted the group here. Over the years, it's evolved. It was in person, it was a hybrid, online only, hybrid again. It's been online only the last several years, obviously. But I've my it's called Write On Online, but it's not just writers, it's writers, creatives, and entrepreneurs. So every day in the group, there is a different thread. What are your networking goals for the week? What are your goals for the week? Blog share day, Toot Your Horn Thursday, which is my favorite, Photo Friday, and
S
weekend plans. So all the questions are designed not only so you could share what you're working on, but to start conversations with others in the community.
Yeah.
So so that evolved into that. But when I started leading the group in LA, I would get, "Deb, you're good at this. Can I hire you? I've been trying for years to write my book. We got it done in 3 months." Or, "Deb, you're good at this. Do you want to speak at my event?" So that's how it evolved for and as I mentioned before, my background is communications and project management. I worked in different industries, director of communications, cheerleader extraordinaire was never actually a title, but but I would go into companies and create systems for things. When I first moved to LA, I was temping at a private school and they kept asking me back and I said, "If you want me back, create a job for me." So I was assistant to director of admissions and I created a system for the application process. And this is early no, actually this was the late 90s. Uh, and it was before everything was way before social media was there, even mainstream. But taking that, what are the elements of the project
Yeah.
and creating systems is always, and then as a writer forever, I've always been one who loves words. So like I said, this is between project management and communications is it's really the meshing of both. So we'll fast forward a little bit more. I had been working, I already mentioned, because the company that I was working with decided they didn't need me anymore. And I took that as an opportunity to really dive into what I believe I was meant to do, which is help people figure out what they want and how to get it. And my mom said to me, "You hate SMART goals. Why not create DEB goals?" And I'm like, "Ooh, my name worked perfectly with this system that I have been teaching for years."
So, why do you hate SMART goals?
I hate such a strong word. I really don't like them because so many goal setting experts, I'm using air quotes because I know this is audio, they hang a shingle. I am a SMART goals coach. No, you did not create SMART goals. It was part of a thesis mathematicians used for years ago for figuring out progress. So I have a real hard, I'm sorry if you love them, but I believe if you are working a system, it should be your system. So SMART goals are a good tool. If you use them and love them, good for you, but they're only a tool.
Yeah.
DEB goals, as we've previously discussed, starts with creating the foundation for your goals. If you want to be successful, you need to take a step back and look at what you want to accomplish. Is saying I want to make a lot of money, that's a really good and popular goal. But if you say, I want to make a lot of money doing this thing that helps other people, and when you have that mission behind your work, that is fuel.
Yeah.
And that's going to get you not only where you want to go, but maybe you're even happy, fulfilled. That's pretty much more powerful than being stuck in a job for years and years because it pays well.
Yeah.
But you're miserable, and that impacts the other aspects of your life.
Have you always had this sort of balance that you have today?
I'm going to say yes. For as much as I can recall, yes. Because I work on my own. I do have as I said before, I do 5 different things. I work with clients who wanna write books and book proposals. I do freelance writing. I do workshops. I do events related to my book. So, I do a lot of things, which and I love all of them. And I will sometimes work a very long day, but I will take breaks in my day. I hear people sometimes they forget to eat, which I just don't understand how that happens.
I forget to eat all the time. I get
Really?
super hyper focused and I just go in and then like I pop out and it's 3 in the afternoon and I was like, maybe I should eat.
Okay. See, I've never had that problem. My body gets pretty mad at me if I haven't eaten. But my point being, and I've been virtual for a while. So even before the pandemic, because of the last time I worked for I'm trying to remember the last time I worked in an office. Oh, actually, I can tell you it was in 2011 to 2012. I worked for a company building up their social media and their blog. And then they wanted to I was laid off because I wanted to bring in someone to manage it because I had created it. And then I did another 3-month stint doing social media for a tech company and when filling in for someone on maternity leave. And from after that, I was back on my own. Yeah. I should really back up. So I worked after the private school, I worked for a financial services company when I went in as marketing coordinator and left as director of communication. So I was there for over 6 years building their systems and I was freelancing, but this was a time where if you did I will answer your question. Where if you did more than one thing, people looked at you funny.
Yeah.
And but I was still freelancing. But no one at work knew. And one of my bosses, because I marketing team, one of my bosses said, I was at a restaurant and I picked up Venice Magazine and I saw a story by Debra Eckerling. Is she a relative? And I said, no, that's me. And I had to convince this person who I worked with that no, I had this other life. And now if you only do one thing, people are like, no, really, what's your side hustle? What are your other things that you like to do? I think after that moment, every job or contract I've worked since, they've known I've also been a freelancer because the culture also changed where you weren't doing just one thing, but it was hilarious. I had to convince my boss that I also did freelance writing. I left that company to work for a different financial services organization, and my boss was let go and his department disbanded, and that's how that job went away. And this was toward the end of 2007. And I said, "Great, I'm gonna go on my own." I was just doing freelance communication work and very happy to be out of the financial realm. It was something I did the fun parts. I did the communications parts, and I just took that opportunity. And this was also the beginning of mainstream social. And I telling the story backwards, but I built up Right On Online. It's been a top website for writers for the last 7 years, I think, on the Right Life. But even prior to that, I don't know if you remember this, but originally Facebook, you would start a group and then groups were, what's the word? They moved groups over into pages. So I
Yeah.
built this great group and then they moved it to a Right On Facebook page. And then maybe around 9 years ago, I decided it was time to make Right On a group again. So I've got Right On Online, the page, but I started this group that I talked about before, all about goal setting, productivity, community. And I forgot now I remember. So the job I got at the ed tech company was because I had developed a blog and social media for my own thing, for my writer, creative entrepreneur community. So that's how I ended up in that gig. And then after that went away in the temp gig, I was back to, okay, let me see what else is out there. More freelance communication. Ended up working with Social Media Examiner for years. So it was like a job, but at one point it was like 20 to 30 hours a week. So I could still do other things. But back to the question of balance, because this has been my life for so many years, I get to be in charge. As I said
Yeah.
before, if I have a deadline, I work a little bit more. It's okay. My body will forgive me because in a few weeks I can go back into balance.
Do you think that mix of activities, the fact that you always had a second life outside of work, plays into that?
Probably because I'm used to it. But I also remember when I started freelancing as an editor for Social Media Examiner, they also had a website at the time called My Kids Adventures. So I was actually hired to work on both. And I had so much fun. And I don't have kids, which is hilarious, but I was having so much fun. I was doing a lot of editing and writing for the My Kids Adventure side. And then when that went away, they just brought me over to work solely on the Social Media Examiner side. But again, it was doing different things, using different creative parts of your brain. And the point is to have fun, right?
Yeah.
Loving what you're doing and doing things differently. So even when I was working within that for a while, I was working on two very different sites within the company. But you're right, because I've always been a freelancer and I'm probably really predisposed to doing different things, but that I'm right-brained and I'm left-brained. I'm creative, but I love systems.
Yeah, which is what I think is really interesting about this because the majority of my guests who come on here who now have a balanced life have come from a point where they were unbalanced before. They had a turning moment that then has brought balance or clarity in. They've stepped into things, but you seem to have almost fundamentally always been in this space, following the things that you enjoy, diversifying the things, setting up the structures.
I never thought about it that way, but yeah, I goes back to something else I say a lot, which is it's your life, it's your choice.
Yeah.
We get to choose how we spend our time and our energy. Yes, there's some things, sometimes we have obligations that we have. I'm not married, I don't have kids, so I don't have that level of, so I can't speak
Yeah.
to that experience. But I can speak to if a client seems like they're going to be a red flag off the bat, you run fast because they are going to suck up all of the energy and you're not going to be able to use that for other things. If something goes away, it gives you opportunities to explore other things. Think about it. So this client that I enjoyed writing for, going away completely blindsided me, but it was an opportunity to step into goal setting Deb. And because of that, I rebranded as the Deb Method. I was writing this book. I was going to self publish. I met an agent because, or I remet is the right way to put it, because we
This happens
figured
in life.
we had met at an event years ago in the Valley, and I don't know how much you know about California, but there's West Side and the Valley, and if you live on the West Side, as I do, you do not go to the Valley very often, and it was in one of those rare occasions where I was at an event. Anyway, someone in my group who in the live group, one of her goals was to do more networking, went to an event, and this agent was the only person she met at the event, and she told them about me, and we had this call, and we figured out that we had met previously, whatever. But where's your book? Send me your book proposal. Let's get it out there. So had that client not gone away, had I not like fully embraced Deb and the Deb method, had I not been planning to self-publish, and then I ended up writing a book proposal, which he sent out, and my book, Your Goal Guide, came out in January 2020. So 6 weeks before everybody had
Wow.
changed by circumstance, out came my book to help people embrace change by choice or by circumstance, which goes back to your life, your choice. When you look at things not going the way that you think that they're supposed to and say, oh, okay, what can I do that's going to move me forward to those goals? Or it doesn't even have to be for business. Let's say you're locked into the job. Fine. Some people can't,
That's the reality.
right? What can you do on the side that's going to bring you joy that you can build? And maybe it will enable you to leave the day job at some point, but that isn't even the point of it. The point is to do something creative or fun or exciting on the side and let that joy leak into the part of your life that you don't love so much.
I feel like you're a trailblazer as a Gen X thinking this way, mixing being multi-passionate, mixing different lives, following your joy and your passion and like living in this for so long. I feel like the world's catching up to the life you've already been living and you're just a model of what it can be without having to have the burnouts. Like that it is possible to just show up fully as you from the beginning and have this sense of balance without having to torch out in the process to get there.
Wow, that's so nice. Thank you for saying that. I really never thought of it that way. Honestly, I know people think of goals as four-letter word, the bad kind.
Yeah.
I think of it as the good kind. I'm taking back the word goal because life is possible, especially the technological age in which we live. All the resources, all the people, they're at our disposal. And you don't need to put a lot of time and energy into creating that side thing, but just gift yourself a little time to figure out, okay, what do I love? What else can I do?
Gift
What's
you
going to bring me joy that can leak into the less joyful parts?
gift yourself the time to think and figure it out. I think there's so few of us who we want it right now that we don't even gift ourselves that time.
Guess what? I'm impatient too. If you Google goal setting experts, it comes up mostly men,
Yeah.
which for me, it's not okay. So that's part of my mission, change goal culture in and out of the workplace. Be the first person people think of when they hear the word goal. Yes, I have like lofty ambitions, but don't we all?
Yeah.
If we take a step back and think, okay, and it is very rarely on our own time frame, right? But
What do you mean
a
by that?
little, I wanted to be famous yesterday. Are you kidding me?
Okay.
And whereas my book came out in January 2020. It was the right book at the right time. But remember that time frame, no one was doing anything.
Yeah.
Eh, Oh, it'll blow over. It'll be a couple. It took maybe 6 months for people to say, okay, maybe I need to rethink my life. So, whereas, and I love my book so much. And I often, and as other people who've had books released at that time can attest, the rules changed. I was doing webinars maybe a week after lockdown because that's how we started communicating. But people weren't ready to accept that life was changing. By the same token, it was still the right book for a lot of people at the right time.
Yeah.
And it's evergreen along with the DEB methods. I even have a really good point now. Anytime when you're feeling stalled or stagnant or my goodness, I wish life was different. Guess what? It can be. You just need to make that commitment to yourself. Say, okay, what can I do that's even just a little bit different? Or what can I do that's just a little bit of time each week to build something that's going to bring me fulfillment, joy, satisfaction, whatever adjective you want to use, whatever descriptive. But the time is now. We get to live the life by our own design, but it starts with deciding to do it, figuring out what you want, and then making a plan to turn it into reality. See? Simple.
So you explained out the DEB method. You've given plenty of practical, logical examples on where to start. But if you wanted to do just a mini micro experiment to get started, where would you start?
I would start with directed journaling. So schedule 15-minute appointments with yourself. Just do 3 and ask yourself, what do I want? Or what do I want to create? Or even, this is even better, what's next?
Ooh.
Let's use that one. Do a directed journaling on what's next for 3 15-minute sessions. You don't have 15 minutes, do it 5 minutes, do it 10 minutes, but just do it more than once or twice. Do it at least 3 times, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever the time you have while you're making dinner. Let's make it cooking for productivity time. While you're cooking dinner, take 5 minutes and do the thing.
Yeah.
And do this a couple times and then read through, and it will give you a clue into what's next for you. Or I'll give a second option. Instead of what's next, do a how can I find more balance? Use that as your question.
Yeah. Really good. Thank you. If people want to connect or learn more about you, where can they find you?
I am at the DEB Method everywhere on social media. Go on LinkedIn, connect with me and say this is how or where we met. You can also email me at deb@thedebmethod.com, and you can grab a copy of your goal guide, a roadmap for setting, planning, and achieving your goals at your favorite place to buy books.
As well as her new book, 52 Secrets for Goal Setting and Goal Getting, available January 28th, 2025.
And I again can't reach your goals on your own. You need your people, so let's be each other's people. Let's elevate each other and help us create that life that you want. Oh, and can I put in an extra plug, please? I go live every Monday at 4 p.m. Pacific for Goal Chat. You can watch it on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And new episodes of Taste Buds with Deb are released on Wednesdays, and you can subscribe to both of those on your favorite podcast platform.
Cool. So with that, I'm going to ask you the final 5 questions I asked all of my guests. Are you ready?
Yes.
Good. What is your definition of serenity?
Being able to breathe in peace and a harmony.
In harmony.
I actually have this rock that says harmony on it. I can't remember where I found it somewhere years ago. And this is, you know how people talk about your buzzwords?
Yeah.
I always include harmony in that because is that not the definition of balance?
Mm, beautiful. If you could master one skill instantly, what would it be?
I want to master making little Instagram videos because all of my shows are way too long. And I need to I would love to someone to wave the magic wand and say, "Just do this, Deb," and make that as simple as goal setting.
Love it. What is your favorite method to recharge during the workday?
Dance breaks.
Ooh.
A 2-minute dance break is gonna give you all the energy you need. It'll lift your spirits and give you all the energy you need to get through what's next.
That's a good one. What are you geeking out about right now?
I'm geeking out about my podcast. So I mentioned this before. I do the Taste Buds with Deb podcast, and it's bite-sized conversations about food, cooking, and community. And it's different because I don't only interview chefs. I do. I interview chefs, bloggers, foodies, but also people with connection to food. So I
Ooh.
love meeting new people and getting motivated. Seeing what I'll tell you another secret. They always include a recipe, but I don't always make the recipes. But when I do, I'm very happy to try something new.
Oh, that's fun. So this is a weird question because it's assume you have achieved your optimal work-life blend. Describe a typical day.
See, you just want to know what my typical day is. I think I explained this before. Get
Yeah.
up, eat. I typically will do more by email things in the morning. In
Yeah.
my meetings in the afternoons, I set aside a couple Zoom-free days a week so I can get actual work stuff done. And an ideal day is when I hit a full refrigerator and can cook whatever I want. Sure.
Amazing. I think this is a good place to pop in the question that we started with at the beginning of the balance comes from logic.
Yes.
Can you explain that a little bit more?
Let's go back to the beginning of DEB Method. When you think about the life you want, what does that look like? How many hours a day do you spend doing this? How many hours a day do you spend doing that? What can you, if your life is not ideal, what can you swap out for something different? And this was something I talked about a lot at the beginning of the pandemic. We don't commute. What was your commute? Great. You would drive 20 minutes each day. What can you do in those 40 minutes? And you don't even have to do it every single day. What can you do in those 40 minutes a couple days a week
Yeah.
that's going to bring you closer to that balance? And it doesn't necessarily mean you have to work. Maybe you use those 40 minutes meditating or reading a book or having a coffee or just sitting or doing exercise. I should do more of that. I believe dancing for exercise, it's not just those 2-minute dance breaks. It's also my favorite form of exercise. But going back to the logic, look at your week. What do you want to do? What do you need to do? What do you have to do? And make sure you have not just have tos and need tos, but the want tos in there as well in a way that makes sense.
Yeah. Think about it as a logical plan. It makes sense. I love it.
Right?
Yeah. Makes sense to me. I'm
Excellent.
Engineering Serenity. This sounds exactly up my alley.
Love that. Well, let me know how it goes for sure.
I have learned so much today. It was good to get a nice verbal refresh from the expert, from your mouth. You could read it, but it's different when it comes from the creator herself of the DEB method. We talked about direct journaling, what to do, and just your example of how you have stood like following your happy, making it happen, living that multi-passionate life in a way that's just created this sense of balance and continuity. I think you're just an inspiration. So thank you. As we exit the show, is there one thing you want the audience to take away from our discussion today?
Well, first of all, thank you, and also for your kind words. I believe whatever word you use, whether it's fulfillment, joy, happiness, balance, it's yours. You just have to decide what you need to do to put that life you want into motion. It's within your control. Do it in little bits of time. You will get where you want to go.
Intrigued or inspired by today's episode, but forgot the details? Don't worry, I've got you covered. Visit engineeringserenity.com for a complete summary of today's episode, including timestamps, links, and other resources for your adventure. Wishing you strength and serenity, Evelyn out.